Dawson's Rentals.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. This is just going to be a little bit of a free-form discussion, even though I think of it still as ABC Family, but a free-form discussion on some of the recent stuff, again, about Cosmic Fury, more so about the franchise in general, as there's been a lot of sentiment recently with the needless early discourse about Cosmic Fury and negativity about Hasbro. The ideas come up and the thought has come up of I miss Saban, I miss Bandai, would they do better? And I wanted to discuss my thoughts on that. I'm primarily going to focus on the Bandai aspect of it, just briefly talking for a couple minutes about the idea of would Saban do better, what do I miss, that type of stuff. I'm going to be honest, I know things seem a little bit kind of turbulent right now and uncertain, but I do not miss Saban. Arguably the one that I only really miss is Disney Jetix times, because that was the best balance of Disney corporate really didn't care, but their kind of bare minimum effort of just putting stuff on autopilot yielded really good presents for the series. It was constantly in reruns, the toys were always on the shelves, kind of like with Neo Saban, it was on this autopilot to a degree, but a much better autopilot with much better product, to be honest. But unfortunately, stuff like that isn't really realistic, and I think a lot of people forget when it comes to this conversation that the nature of TV has changed with streaming. In an ideal world, I would love for us to almost have a marriage between the regularity of the Jetix presence and the ambition of some of the stuff Hasbro has brought up. So Disney era is the only one that I actually have nostalgia for and miss. I do not miss Saban, Neo Saban's era. I do miss the potential for the 2017 movie, which I personally loved and would have loved to see that get furthered. But in general, I do not miss the purgatory of the super seasons and the very bland and dialed back maturity and writing for the series. I think that was a purgatory I was not willing to serve if we had continued on with that. So I do not miss that whatsoever. I would much rather have what we have now, which is some bit of changes and some uncertainty, but some possible ambition. It could go wrong, but I would rather us see them try something different and evolve with the times. Even if it doesn't work out, I would rather see that than have to serve continued 2-year seasons purgatory. And I didn't even mind the 2-year seasons. I feel like I understand more than most that just the model of TV is different here and has changed, but what I mean is just about the show quality. I would much rather have this uncertain thing with some ambition. I think things are turbulent, I think maybe things will get canceled, maybe they'll shelve the reboot indefinitely for a while, maybe the reboot won't work, but I personally prefer this idea of this at least ambition somewhere in there, somewhere out there amongst the people working. I think there's an ambition for something different, and I do prefer that to serving sentence of Saban where they were just content and effectively the same. So I will just say that in regards to it. And in regards to who could do better, Hasbro isn't doing the best, but I think there are some fumbles and worthy criticisms, but I also think a lot of it, in my opinion, boils down to the way that we get information and the way they announce things is very different than we're used to, because Power Rangers had so many, trackable patterns for so many years that suddenly now that we don't track that and get information when we want it, we think that bad stuff is happening, and I think that boils down to that. So that's all I'll say about that, because I've talked about that in length. I more so wanted to address the toy stuff, especially because we've recently gotten looks at the Morpher and the Megazord, and they don't look the greatest. We don't have our hands on them yet. Someone has gotten their hands on the Morpher, and to be honest, it looks like the look of it isn't great, but the functions are pretty cool. The Megazord, I can't really fully judge it. I can say the first picture doesn't look great. It doesn't look the worst, but I'm more so disappointed that it looks like we're not getting articulation. But it brought up, of course, that classic, would Bandai do better? I miss Bandai. First of all, I'll have to say, y'all would be hating on Bandai still. Fans are just pure hatred. It doesn't matter. If we were still in the Bandai era, you would still be hating them. You're never going to be happy. So this is just romanticizing it. I think there was a lot more positives about Bandai than was given credit to back in the day, because we're complaining, out the wazoo about Hasbro. That's a sentence. But it was the same in the Bandai days. During prime Neo Saban Bandai times, it was the same toxicity. So y'all are romanticizing it. And I don't mean that in the sense that it wasn't as good as you remember. I just mean that you're romanticizing that era. You were just as negative back then too. I think there was some positive things about the Bandai era. I think there's positive things about the Hasbro era. So I wanted to say that to start, is it's the same people. It's kind of like when Go Busters came out. It was the same people that hated Go Busters for not being Go Kaijers suddenly were Go Busters' #1 fan when Beast Morphers came out. So yeah, it's like that. You would still be hating it. But I think it's an interesting conversation, because there is stuff I miss about Bandai, to be honest. I've talked about this to a degree before, but I think for the most part, I miss the mainline stuff. I do miss some stuff about the Legacy Collection. I think most notably the Morphers and Weapons were the best. I think that was the best collector's quality. Not that there isn't some good stuff that Hasbro has done, but that's what I miss more so on the collector's side, is the Morphers and the Weapons. The Megazords too, to a degree, but I think that we're on the right track with Zap. The original one wasn't perfect, but the Astro Megazord was awesome, and I think we have potential to grow from there. The Lightning Collection, I know, has its problems, but it's not like when they have these fumbles, they're screwed for all time. So I do prefer the Hasbro stuff overall in regards to the collector line stuff, because even though it's not perfect, I think there's a lot more going on in terms of a lot more variety of the figures. Even though I don't. Lots of people love to say we only do MMPR. Like, yeah, we do a lot of MMPR stuff, but we also do a lot more variety than we're given credit for. So, on the whole, in terms of now and in the future and the potential for the future, I do prefer Hasbro's, but I do miss Bandai in regards to the main line. I do think that there's been some good stuff in the Hasbro main line. I think the morphers, honestly, I think the weakest point are some of the ones that don't look as good, like Golds. And some of them are really glitchy, like the Dino Knight Morpher has a lot of cool sounds, but is so glitchy. Like, when I have to pull that thing down for when a figure comes with the key, like, I'll just get ready to put the key in there, it'll start glitching out. But there's some good functionality there. And I think up until potentially with this Cosmic Fury Megazord, they were on the right track with the Megazords, and I think the basic figures were solid. So I'm not going to say that it's all bad, but I think the primary thing that was best about Bandai was presence. It just had a presence on the shelf. And to be fair, like, the toy climate has changed and all that stuff, and not all toy lines have presence, but also, Hasbro, in regards to Transformers, has a presence of, like, collector and mainline stuff far more than PR. And the presence of the mainline PR stuff since Hasbro bought it after Beast Morpher's initial push has been kind of sad. Like, Beast Morphers, when it first came out, had a decent amount on the shelf, but ever since then, for the most part, at my Target and Walmart, the, like, mainline PR section is amounted to 2 little sections. And if that, like, and oftentimes, I can't remember if it's Target or Walmart, for whatever reason, I think this has more to do with, like, the way they organize stuff, but it gets, like, separated, so I'll be like, one chunk of PR stuff is over here, and then there'll be, like, a bunch of random stuff, and then the rest is over here. I don't know, that's, like, about their organization, but it doesn't have that presence that gets you excited and makes you feel like the brand has presence. Like, we always talked about the excitement of when a new season started and seeing all the new toys, but even just when you're in the thick of a current season, like SPD, or Overdrive, or Samurai, or whatever, and you go there, and there's a nice section with a nice variety. You got a bunch of different basic figures, not just the main forms, but a bunch of the super forms and stuff, like the bike figures, the non-show figures, which not everyone liked, but they had a ton of awesome designs for those. The Megazords, the Morphers, the weapons, all kinds of odds and ends, just a lot more presence. And, I especially miss that with the figures. I was thinking about how, the other day, how if Bandai was doing Ryusoldier, Dino Fury, we would have gotten so many figures for the armors, probably too much where people complained about milking them, but there was such potential there, and potential for, like, armor swap gimmicks and stuff like that, and I do miss that. Like, in an ideal world, I would love to do, like, a collaboration where we could have Bandai America style presence for the main line. I said the word presence so many times, I'm sorry. And then the Lightning Collection, stuff like that. However, it is worth noting that, like, there was a dip in quality in the Bandai era. I think that people do often forget about the changing of plastic and prices with all that type of stuff. I am guilty of that too, more so with Sentai, because I feel Sentai Mecha have felt cheaper in recent years, and I keep harping on that. I need to stop doing that. I mean, I'm still going to mention it sometimes, because, like, when a product doesn't feel up to the price, I want to bring that up. But anyway, this isn't about me. This isn't about me, but what I mean is that it's changed, and a lot of fans are out of touch often, like, I don't understand why they don't just sell an $80 Sentai mech to us, or a $60 Sentai changer. Aren't kids going to buy? No, that's not reasonable here. And so there is going to be a slight decline in quality, and a lot of the stuff Hasbro's doing that's getting criticized, Bandai had that too. I still stand by that. I think that there was a pretty decent balance in primarily Samurai through Dino Charge. Honestly, my main complaint about that in regards to quality was the bike figures. I thought the fact that they put bike figures out there, that they were borderline just sending you eventually just a brick. Like, it was not, they didn't even sculpt it yet. Like, it was, like, unpainted. Like, that to me was embarrassing. Not because, like, obviously it's a kid's toy, but I just feel like that's not a good look. Whether you're a kid or a collector or a parent buying for your kid, that just looks embarrassing. That was my main harp on the quality. There was dips here and there, but I think in regards to affordability and that balance, they did really well, especially with the Megazords. I think they weren't perfect, but as I mentioned in yesterday's video, usually they more so took hits aesthetically in the separated modes, but for a $25 to $30 price, they were damn solid, and I think there was an overall good balance. I think the main quality dip came for Ninja Steel, which I'm not sure if that's because they knew their contract was up and stopped caring, but I think there was more quality dip there overall, and it was noticeable, and who knows, maybe because of the change of the market, they would have the same quality dip as Hasbro. But you'd still get the same complaints, but I think that if Bandai was doing the main line, it would probably overall be better with more variety. I'm willing to admit that. The last thing I do want to say, though, is when this comes up to, you also think, well, who else could have it? I don't know about the franchise, who else could have the franchise. Let's not even get into that. But with regards to the toys, Playmates. I don't know if they still do the Turtles ones, to be honest with you. I've considered picking up a couple figures from the new movie, but I don't know if they still do them. But they did do them for the Rise of the TMNT line, as well as the old Ben 10 toys I used to review, and those were both excellent. The distribution and presence, again, I'm sorry, on those weren't necessarily always the best. I had a hard time finding things sometimes and stuff like that, but they were some well-made toys. Like, the Ben 10 Omnitrixes weren't perfect, but they were very good looking and they had a lot of functionality. The figures were great. You know, they weren't, again, always perfect, but a lot of them looked like they jumped right out of the screen. Honestly, like, Bandai did a good job with the Ben 10 figures too, but I think Playmates was like lockstep with them. Like, they felt very close to the Ben 10 toys of Bandai, if not better in some realms. Like, they felt of good quality, and a lot of them, like I said, it looked like they jumped out of the cartoon. And I know that the designs were controversial for Rise of the TMNT, but there were some awesome quality toys there. I think they still do them, but it's like, when I see the Playmates toys, first of all, you know, I think of like Playboy stuff, but also I think of like, I always associate that brand too with like a kiddier take for whatever reason. But man, I don't know, like, again, that's a total different conversation because Hasbro owns the franchise and the toys, which also leads to funny conversations of like, man, Cosmic Fury is going to suck because the Megazord toy looks bad. Like, or Cosmic Fury is going to suck because the Lightning figures are having problems. Like, I know that's the same company, but that's entirely two different departments. Like, this dude over here screwing up the Lightning collection has no effect on the quality of the show. So that's a different thing. But just talking about the realm of toys, if we wouldn't go back to Bandai, which we're not, I don't think we're going to change, I think Playmates would be a cool one because they're almost like kind of slept on. Like, again, I've only really collected stuff from two of their lines, which was TMNT and Ben 10, but dang, there were some good toys in there. I'll have to look into if the current movie toys are Playmates or not. I imagine they are. I don't think they lost the license. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. So I think ultimately it's really hard to say because times have changed and Bandai could have changed. I'll just say that I think Bandai could do better in some aspects, but I don't think it would all of a sudden change everything, and I think it's a lot of romanticizing. And again, not romanticizing and saying that Bandai was actually worse than you remember, but the fan reaction to Bandai was worse than you remember. But that's it for this one, guys. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.